Welcome to Demming Chronicles, Season 2. We welcome persons whose ideas and opinions are different. They are the ideas and opinions that can change the behavior in our country. We believe that in order to change the behavior, we just have to change the conversation. And today's conversation welcomes Jean Claude Cournand.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good evening.
Great having you. And we also welcome Devon Seale.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a
Demming
pleasure.
Chronicles. Demming Chronicles, Season 2. Join us shortly. Demming Chronicles. Jean Claude, welcome to our program. The last I heard of you, you were somewhere studying, having received some kind of scholarship. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah. So I was in Edinburgh, University of Edinburgh, doing an MSc in Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and I focused my research around social enterprises and social entrepreneurship in small island developing states. That was my dissertation.
Okay. Did you enjoy Edinburgh?
Yeah, it was a really beautiful city, and in terms of like looking at a city that has like a really well developed ecosystem for arts, it was more than just the program. It was also that the city was very creative and very progressive when it comes to using arts.
And so you must have been in your glory because you're also known as a person who popularized spoken word. Tell us, how did spoken word become the method of expression for our millennials?
Right. Well, these are I mean, is a question that I guess different people will have different perspectives. So for me, I will think about like Trinidad and Tobago, the popularity in Trinidad and Tobago, because in different parts of the world it's not as popular. Like while I was in Scotland, it wasn't as popular. So there are two things. One, I think that in this day and age in particular, spoken word as a form of expression, um, the anatomy of the art form really allow itself for the average person to use it. So okay, so for example, you may have drama or rap or these other forms, but they're like these barriers to entry. Like if I want to get into rap, could I actually rap? Do I have a beat? Do I have a studio? Or if I want to do drama, I'm actually not the author. I'm performing else's work. So spoken word is almost like people performing their journals. It's free writing, your own thoughts, you are the author, and it has a level of accessibility, built into the art form itself that to me, once used in any culture and context, it's easily adaptable and is easily accessible for a young person to use it, right, as a tool. In terms of like Trinidad and Tobago, I believe like we had a long history of oral traditions, performance. When I got involved in spoken word, it was already being done at UE in a big way, and it was just about taking it forward. I think a great cross section of different organizations. You had Bocas Fest, Two Cents Movement. You had projects like the Free Speech Project. You have Roots Foundation. You have several open mics. We're all working together at the right time to really take it forward. And we had in Trinidad and Tobago within the last 10 years, national platform at the primary school level for spoken word, a secondary school spoken word competition, and the National Poetry Slam for spoken word. And the National Poetry Slam next year would be 10 years running. So I think it actually is a very good that it is potent in Trinidad and Tobago more so than other islands, because it shows what good programming and NGOs that actually take initiative could do. They could actually bring our art form to the forefront and allow it to become accessible in ways that we may not have previously imagined.
Mhm. But do you think spoken word has reached a saturation point in Trinidad and Tobago?
Um, for me personally, I would say it has to a certain extent. Um, but to me, the saturation to a certain extent is really around the diversity of ideas and opinions. Even abroad, like in America, a lot of the open mics basically become places where people hear certain ideas repeatedly. They look to poets to express like particular progressive views, or maybe social democratic views and so forth. So there is this kind of echo chamber that is kind of being created, where the art form is not a space where people could necessarily disagree, where it's becoming like politically correct to say certain things, and have certain opinions, and to have a divergent opinion is not really the cool thing for the young activists to do. And I think like that type of echo chamber is really destructive to it, because we need to have the art in particular has to be a space where people can be honest and people can be free to disagree. And to me, what made spoken word beautiful when I was in university was the fact that there were Christian poets, Muslim poets, people disagreeing and using the poetry to really have a better conversation, not to necessarily to become a form of dogma, and a form of just reiterating one message. So I think what is necessary is to spark a sense of diversity in spoken word, and help people to know that it's okay to have poems that go against popular opinion. And I think that is what is needed to really break some of the monotony.
So what I'm hearing you say is that we don't really have saturation, but we may have some elements of an echo chamber. But
Yeah.
tell me, how does the society benefit from this kind of cultural expression?
Well, I could, as a citizen, I could say how it impacted me at a point in time, when I was a first-time voter, and the first election at that point in time was actually between Mr. Manning and Ms. Kamala Prasad Bisesa in 2010. Um, at university, there was no space. Like I was going to university at Southern Caribbean, there was no space for people to young people to exchange ideas. We had people who already knew they were voting PNM, people who already knew that they were voting USC, and they probably argue here and there, but there was no space. And what was beautiful for me with spoken word uh, and open mics was the atmosphere of listening to different points of views, the atmosphere of hearing sides of the story that normally you would not hear, and in a concise and very passionate way, in a way that was like really accessible, and almost it didn't ask for your permission in a certain sense. Like nobody wakes up and says, "Okay, I want to hear your views on LGBTQ rights," or anything like that. But they may say, "Okay, I wanna hear a poem," and that poem end up becoming a way to impart an idea that they may not have necessarily been open to. So to me, the power in it at that time in my life and for society is really um, helping us to have a civil way to have conversations, to really hear different perspectives, to see different sides of the story, and to see it in not just a way where we report in facts, but there's a storytelling element to spoken word that really allows a good poem to really tug at your heartstring and do more than the publishing of a statistic, so to really feel. So I think for our society, spoken word has the potential to make us more humane, more human, and to make us more understanding and empathetic to one another, and also to make us better listeners.
But do you think that is still the case where spoken word is giving you an opportunity to hear a different political point of view?
Um, Not right now. It's not. I don't think it's currently the case. I think in the pandemic, spoken word has really, to a certain extent, not really responded to in the last 2 years, in a way that resonates with society. That in sense that when was the last time you heard a poem during the pandemic that was viral, that gave you a sense of hope, that gave you a different perspective or a different voice, and I think that there has been a gap, particularly in that period of time. But I am hopeful that as we move out of the pandemic, and people see, I think, the state of the art. I think being honest about the problems in it, being honest about some of the redundancies and so forth, we could actually now, organizers could actually program for a more inclusive space and for different perspectives. And it becomes the responsibility, I think, of the community to really find a way to reinvent the art form and make it relevant once again.
Mhm. I certainly miss the energy of the in person presentations. So that for me, spoken word online is not all that exciting. But let's just switch the conversation a little and tell me if you had an opportunity to formalize spoken word to be part of the education curricula, would you take that up and how would you do that?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked this question. In Chicago, there's a teacher named Peter Khan, and that I met him, and when I was across there, looking at the way spoken word is used in Chicago, and he actually was one of the case studies for spoken word in schools across, in different parts of the world. They look at what he's doing, and he managed to get a poetry slam integrated into the actual periods of the school. There will be a spoken word period where students would write and perform, and the slam is actually something that all the students in the school have to be part of. Um, so one of the things that the conversation around his work is really, I guess, forming an evidence base for the impact of it. The impact of spoken word on not just writing, because I think like that's what everybody will look at. Like writing, if it make people more interested in writing and reading, like, so that's given, but also the impact on youth development, confidence, voice. Having a better sense of self. So like really having that data. So the trust right now in the global spoken word community has been around researching the impact of spoken word programs, and really having a case based on data and actual findings in different parts of the world on how spoken word could be impactful in a classroom setting. I think that academic backing behind it is really, really important. For me, I think in my lifetime, it would be good if spoken word or a form of free writing that students get to be the author of their own stories and share them with each other really becomes a core part of what English and English literature is. That's not just about reading and understanding other people's stories, but it's also about finding the best language to express your own, and about listening to the stories within the classroom. And I think, from that perspective, if we take out it being a spoken word thing, or whether it's drama or whatever, spoken word is a great tool, but is a real human need. I mean, in classes, where's the space to tell my story? Where's the space to write and to perform, or to disagree? Is it a debate, or is it through choral speaking? And these things are not enough. So I think once we know that there's that need, and once we can match up with the academics behind the research that says that spoken word is a great developmental tool for young people in terms of English competency and self-development, I think it can fit within the curriculum, and it can fit within our English language and English B space.
Jean Claude, I just smiled when you talked about in your lifetime because there's a long life that you have ahead of you, and I certainly hope it's done in my lifetime so that you too will benefit. But as we bring this interview to an end, what advice do you have for a young person who's passionate about writing, about expression? What's your advice to them?
Well, my advice is to listen as much as you want to be heard, because the beauty in being a very good writer is not just, I think, in being able to very clearly communicate your side of the argument, but to appeal to people's emotions and to understand how people think, to understand how people feel, to understand where there may be discomfort, and to really write in such a way that you consider those nuances, and you really reach people. And to do that is less of what you want to say and more of an understanding of what people need, or who the community is. So I would say, spend time listening to other poems, spend time reading other poems, spend time looking at having conversations with people around the idea and the poem that you want to write, to hear different sides of it. And then ultimately I would say, go at it and really write. The gift of writing a spoken word poem is it allows a certain kind of catharsis, where by expressing it, by you capture something that has been on your mind, and something that has been difficult to say, and once done well, is like you could close that book almost. So I think there's almost like a healing property to it, of really putting together a poem and feeling like you really shared something in the best way that you could. So I think the risk, is worth the reward, even if you don't feel like you could do it. But I think just go at it, and know that just by writing, you're also completing parts of yourself, and it wouldn't just be about the poem now, but it would be about the long-term fact that you got that off your chest in that particular way.
Thank you very much, Jean Claude. Thank you for being part of Demming Chronicles. We'll be back with you shortly.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Demming Chronicles Season 2, and Devon Seale is our guest. Devon, thank you very much for being with us, and tell me, what keeps you inspired?
Denise, there are many factors that keep me inspired. I just love being around people who love what they do. So that is one form of inspiration. I will say on the creative side as well, developing and creating, providing that great music and seeing the satisfaction of those followers or those fans, that gives me, and especially, in the Calypso art form, when you get that thumbs up or you hear encore, just, the music part of it and the creativity, just being around people who love what they do, just is a form of inspiration.
Mm. So you're totally inspired by the response you get to your offerings.
Yes, definitely.
So tell me, how have you?
And in any aspect, even when any presentations, even as an IT professional, you find some solution or you bring some solution to persons and it resolves some type of issue. I am inspired by that.
Think about country and the very rich aspects of our country. And if you were given an opportunity to impact any area, what would you do?
I would say, right now, with respect to challenges we experience with COVID, I think it is a great opportunity for us to really embrace technology. And not just embrace technology by word of mouth, but really the action, the doers, getting the doers there to get things done and to really implement stuff. Because I think this time here, we especially last year, we had enough time to really analyze and see some of the challenges as a nation that we are experiencing.
So you're talking about embracing technology, and there's a lot of conversation around embracing technology. But could you give me an example of an aspect of technology that you think we ought to embrace and just run with?
I would say right now, the simple thing like the vaccination campaign that is taking place right now. It would be good if we can see where there's a digitization of that vaccination card, and that could eliminate some of the problems that we are experiencing with respect to fraudulent people creating fraudulent cards. So I'm hopeful that sometime soon we might see the digitization of those vaccination cards.
I just listened to how your voice, your tone went down when you said sometime soon. Is that an indication that you're not very hopeful?
No, I am hopeful. I am hopeful. I really think because already we are seeing major challenges with these vaccination cards. You know, you're hearing stuff that people are actually selling vaccination cards, and I think to eliminate that, definitely. And I am hopeful. I am hopeful. It could be done.
So you're looking at digitization, you're looking at like a vaccination card. Is there any other aspect of digitization that you think we ought to be embracing?
Um, Another thing too is like, for example, in the transport system, because we have a lot of these, you know, these millennials. They don't have that patience to join any line, right? So we have to make things easier for them in terms of access to services, access to services. And already we are seeing some kind of improvement, especially at the Ministry of Transport. You know, we are seeing some improvement there in terms of access to services, but there are many other ministries whereby an improvement, you know, we can see some big improvement in terms of
Yeah.
delivery of services, especially to the younger ones. I mean, yeah, we hear that a number of the mature, or I should say the older ones in the society, you know, they don't have that patience to download an app to do that. But we need to provide those young people, they don't have that patience.
Mm. Mhm. I didn't know that you were an IT professional as well. Tell me, how did you get into IT? I thought I knew you only
And
as
so
a singer, you know?
actually, so my first degree is in computer science. I went to Brazil in 2001 and I spent 4 years in Brazil doing computer science as well as a minor in languages, specifically Portuguese. And I was already employed at TSTT at that time. So I was granted study leave. I went down to Brazil. And when I came back from Brazil, I actually started working in the IT department in risk and network fraud in TSTT. I was at TSTT for almost 20 years.
Okay. Tell us about your experience in Brazil because you chose to study in Brazil, and I'm assuming you had to learn Portuguese. Tell us about that experience.
Of course. Well, you know, the norm at that time going abroad to study, it was always like, you know, that Europe or the USA. So when I made that decision to go to Brazil, it was already a Brazil. Why Brazil? But I mean, in terms of technology, Brazil is way advanced. And also, I had that opportunity as well. Studying in Brazil, they would have celebrated. They celebrate their carnival the same time with ours. So, you know, I didn't have a downtime as a professional calypsonian. I didn't have that downtime. So I was able to, the same time that Brazil will go on, the universities will go on their break for carnival, I was able to come back home and perform my calypsos. The experience there, I mean, it was a great experience. It was challenging in the beginning, not knowing anything. I mean, I did Spanish up to Form 3, and there are a lot of similarities with Spanish and Portuguese. However, when I got there, it was like nada, nada. You know, I knew, and I mean, many a nights I would have been studying. You know, I wonder if I made the right choice. But again, that alone was an inspiration and a type of motivation that, you know what, I went through thick and thin to get this um, study leave approved. No way can I come back to Trinidad saying that, you know, it was tough, it was difficult. No, no, no. So I had to go. And I mean, I met a lot of friends there, and now I just love Portuguese. I love Brazilian culture. You know, it was a great experience.
Mm. Are there any similarities between the Brazilian carnival and the Trinidad carnival as you experienced them?
The thing about it is that I'm so ashamed I've never experienced a Brazilian carnival. However, so there are different states, and each state will, you know, normally have their own carnival. In the state that I was in is Recife. It's the fourth largest city in Brazil. Recife, Pernambuco is the state. And their carnival is similar to how our carnival was in the past, where it wasn't all about, the purchasing a costume. It is you create your own costume and you come out on Carnival Day, the 2 days, and you perform. They will provide the music. Unlike Rio's Carnival, so Rio's Carnival is well choreographed, well organized, and from Ash Wednesday, they already know what they would be playing the following year. And they attend these samba schools, and Salvador is another place too. Their carnival is like those what we would call our night carnival. That carnival what we used to have in the Monday night mass, where you purchase your t-shirts and you come out in the evening and play. So I mean, it's a lot. But I would have experienced outside of carnival, what they call those mini carnivals. I will have experienced one or two of them in Brazil.
That's interesting that there is a main carnival, the Brazil, that samba school thing and that kind of carnival, but there are also many carnivals in other states, which you say have some similarities to Trinidad.
And similar to Trinidad and Tobago, every state says their carnival is the best. Just like our Trinidadians, we would say our carnival is the best.
Yes. Can you see that working in Trinidad? I mean, because we're recreating a future. I don't see Carnival before 2023. Do you see us being able to have those satellite activities and a main activity?
Well, right now, it currently takes place, with those regional carnivals, but not at that large scale. But, I mean, it is a good start. And this would have started about 4 to 5 years ago, where we have those regional carnivals. And some community persons in the community rather stay within their area to, participate.
Devon, you've been successful and as an IT specialist, as an IT person. You are bilingual, at least, if not multilingual. You are a successful calypsonian. Tell me about the experience of converging those 3 separate activities into the person. How is that? How do you do that?
I would say I make enough time, I make a lot of time to really focus the energies in each particular field. And actually, most of the times it's like a combination of all, because within the carnival or the calypso arena, getting your music out there, especially now, getting your music out there, you will need to, embrace that technology, utilize all the different social media platforms. So that is some form of IT there. And then if you want your music to get out, because, I would have performed in Costa Rica and even Brazil, I've done performances there as well. The language now comes into play. And some of my music, I would create specific verses. I would have specific verses specifically targeted for those communities out there, like the Costa Rica and the Brazil.
Let's think about Trinidad of the future. And as we bring this interview to a close, what is your parting words for our viewers?
I will tell them, trust and believe, we can do it, especially where we are approaching our 60th anniversary next year. I mean, this is a time to really reflect on all that we would have achieved before and what we could do in the future.
Trust and believe. On that note, thank you very much, Devon Seale, for being part of Demming Chronicles.
You're most welcome.
And as we move to the celebration of our 60th anniversary, let's reflect and see how we can change our country. How can we make this country the place that we all dream of? Demming Chronicles, like and share editions. Send us a note, ask us a question, suggest someone whose views you wish to hear. Until next time, be safe.